And so I presume a lot of that is aided by AI, and machine vision is aided by AI. Is kind of across everything, right? So, but how are you thinking about AI? I guess we had this big run up in hyperscalers, and now we're in this space where it's software is getting a bit of a beating, and no one's really quite sure. But how do you think about AI?
Well, think about AI a lot. It's a moving part in many industries. The way we invest, we think we do our best work when we spot something relatively early, before it becomes the mainstream debate. We're likely to do less good work when we are competing to be bigger cheerleaders of something. We sold, and it sometimes it means we sometimes say we're not going to be a global innovation fund that brings you Magnificent Seven in a different order. We sold Nvidia when it reached $1 trillion market cap. That was the wrong decision. We would have made our clients more money if we stuck with it, but we went into photonics and memory semiconductors that were the next chapter of AI opportunity, and they significantly outperformed Nvidia in the subsequent 2 years. So that was the right thing to do after all. So where are we going now? AI has become such a, there's so much heat and light in that debate. We're tempted to walk away. In the red corner, you have people saying we're minutes away from artificial superior intelligence that will destroy all the white-collar jobs. In the blue corner, we have people who say this is the biggest capital overinvestment bubble, and is going to end in tears. And there's some phenomenally competent and credible people in both corners. So you need to dance ever more sort of carefully around these big issues, but unless you want to just sort of join the debate on which you have no edge. You quoted Warren Buffett earlier. I'll quote it back at you. He famously said, "You don't have to swing for every pitch." I don't follow baseball, but what he means is when the market throws a ball at you, in which case, what do you do about AI? Sometimes it's okay to say we're not sure. We don't know if Nvidia is a buy or sell from here. Let's not take that risk, with our clients' money. If we were running a benchmark aware fund, there'll be a risk manager saying, "Hey, come on, Nvidia is 5% of the global index. If you don't know, have a 5% in it, and then you're neutral." Our response to that is, "Are you crazy? Do you want me to put 5% of my clients' money and my children's money and my wife's money and my own money, 5% of that money into something where I don't have an edge? Why would I decide? Why would I waste my clients' capital like that?" So we still have memory semiconductors. We still think they've done really well for us. We've taken a lot of profit, but we still think AI needs a lot more memory. It needs really high performance memory to crunch all these numbers in the cloud where these models train and work. And it's very high value, high margin, so-called HBM, high bandwidth memory. But also, I'm not sure if you're recording this conversation, you probably will get an AI summarization of what this conversation is about. You'll probably store this conversation as a video clip. And if somebody said, "Oh, he said something about memory, which minute was that again? And can you replay that bit for me, because I didn't catch what he was on about?" You will offer your listeners, your viewers, that option. AI allows us to, AI gives us reason to capture and store a lot more information in a lot more places. And the cement for that work is memory. So we still have Samsung Electronics, which is the biggest and used to be, and in our opinion will again become the best memory maker in the market.
I just want to check how you are for time. I know we're down for 45 minutes, but we've got a lot of questions coming in. Are you okay to run a bit over?
Yeah, happy to run a bit over. Yeah, absolutely. Great. You can replay me on a
apologies anyway if you do have to go at 1:45.
No problem. Don't worry about it.
But it's a good conversation. So I'll jump into the questions. So the first one is, what do you think the timeline of success for new tech is in terms of being followed by mainstream managers? And I guess we touched on that a little bit, like when does it become popular with the masses first? So I guess it's that piece of, like you said, when the heat is on it and the light is on it. But what is that kind of timeline in your mind? How do you view that when you go into something that isn't there yet?
Yeah, so our time horizon is 3 to 5 years. And the reason I'm not quite answering the question, but I'm saying this is the time horizon on which we're willing to make a judgment. And the reason for that is, over this time horizon we can make intelligent, research-based, data-based forecasts. Longer that becomes a matter of vision, and we've made plenty of mistakes in imagining the world of tomorrow over the years. Anything shorter than that becomes too short term. So that's kind of the and I think it's not, because we buy real businesses, not science projects. If our companies are successful in kind of developing and proliferating that innovation, it will be consistently reflecting in their higher revenues and higher profits over that period of time. So we're not counting on the mass market hype, if you like, to follow our discovery. If that happens, great, because then you get earnings progression and multiplication. But we're not counting on that. What we're counting on is this innovation making that business fundamentally more valuable, all things being equal. Faster growth, higher level of revenues, higher level of earnings will result in value creation for our clients, even if that innovation hasn't yet captured the kind of the mass enthusiasm.
Thank you. So the next question is, which sectors or areas will become obsolete by the innovations you're following? And I guess, how do you factor that in, or do you factor it in?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, we're whenever we look at something, we think about what are the fundamental challenges to this particular field. I mean, the place where this debate is most heated today is software. There is a school of thought which I have a lot of sympathy with, which is a lot of software is what I call skin on data. You have a database of your accounting entries underneath, and your accounting software makes it into a profit loss account. You have a database of all your employees and their personal details and their compensation details, and your HR software, your human capital management software, as the industry calls it, kind of presents it as a nice table and a nice format for you to manipulate. If the human in that particular scenario is replaced by AI agent, that AI agent can go directly to the database. There's a risk. So, and we have avoided skin on data software since the launch of the fund for a variety of reasons. However, that sell-off has become so intense lately. We've been taking a more contrarian view. And the contrarian view we've taken in software is we think there are some areas of software that are so technically complex and so mission critical and so wrapped up in regulatory conventions and have become the repository of the data that's proprietary to a company, that they have a license to not just survive but thrive in the AI world. And for us, we have 3 software companies in the portfolio. They're leaders in their respective field. Autodesk, which is the leader in architecture and construction. PTC, which is the leader in industrial design and industrial service. I think, designing, manufacturing, and then servicing a jet engine, for example. And Bentley Systems, a very little known company, which is the global leader in infrastructure software. Think about, building the bridge and then maintaining that bridge for many decades of its existence. And we think this companies had survived and thrived transition to the cloud. They were leaders in the old world where we had everything contained on the workstation on the engineer's desk. But now they are
CD-ROM.
Say it again.
The CD-ROM software.
That's right. Yeah. So they were strong then. They survived the transition to the cloud, and we think all the signs point to the fact that they will do just fine as they incorporate more AI into that work. We can ask ChatGPT to do our tax return, but we probably won't ask ChatGPT to design the third runway for Heathrow.
Yeah. And just to press on that a little, so you mentioned mission critical. So is that, this has been tried and tested, and we don't want to build a bridge unless we're sure. Is that why they're that's their defense?
Yes. So there's kind of 2 aspects to that. One is, it's really important to get it right. The cost of hallucination is the bridge collapses, as opposed to your LinkedIn post looks a little bit subpar. That's one. But the other one is also something called deterministic. There are laws of physics that say whether this bridge stands or falls. Whether a particular advertising copy resonates with the consumer is probabilistic, and AI is great at that. Deterministic is pretty hard. And so, the combination of these two factors makes it sort of mission critical, real, and therefore more defensible.
Thank you. So the next question, what issues come with photonics and quantum's revolutionary changes? And I guess this is kind of around probably a broader fear. Quantum can crack every code and suddenly we're in a different world. Is that something you think about or can kind of see any part of?
Yeah, I mean, photonics is pretty benign. It's working, it's great, it's very useful. We're probably towards the latter innings of that rather than the former. It's not. I mean, Lumentum, which when we bought it was $4 billion market cap company, just entered S&P 500 index, so it's becoming much better known. Quantum, we've sort of passed on for now. I mean, it feels more like a science project yet, still rather. It's not ready for prime time. It's solving problems, but they're not practical problems. They're kind of proof of concept problems. And from the investment perspective, there's some pure play quantum companies, but also some really great quantum initiatives are within Alphabet, Google, or IBM. And they may be successful, but they may not move the needle for the mothership. So there is a risk that there's this question of post quantum cryptography. There are certain cryptographic algorithms that may be easily crackable for the quantum computing if it fulfills its promise, which is a very big if. And we're not taking that risk in our portfolio. We don't own any cryptography companies.
Yeah. Okay. So you do account for it to some degree.
We're aware of it, yeah, and we're watching it, and it's a risk. But my current premise is quantum isn't going to change our world in any meaningful way for the next 5 years, and therefore it's in a science project rather than in this category.
Okay. There's a couple more questions, but that actually just put a question in my own mind. You mentioned, Alphabet has all the, whether it's quantum or Waymo or, what are your thoughts on, well, it's kind of a two-parter. So one, when you have great innovation, but within a big organization, how do you approach that? And secondly, can you give your thoughts on autonomous vehicles? Because that's always been a kind of it's here, it's not, it's here, it's not. So what are your feelings on that as well?
Yeah. So, when you go through the kind of the detailed fundamental analysis work that we do when we understand how much benefit a particular innovation brings to a particular business, one of the tests, if like one of the questions is, what's the materiality of that? If this is an exciting new strand of development, but it's 5% of revenue, if it doubles, it becomes 10% of revenue. Helpful, but not particularly needle moving. And so we might just say, okay, that's great. If we don't find a pure play, this isn't compelling enough to matter. So that's just the mechanics of how we do the financial modeling of the companies we invest in. When specifically to your question on autonomous vehicles, there are different levels of autonomy. The industry is very prescriptive. Level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. Level 5 is the kind of the Waymos that drive themselves in San Francisco. That's the ultimate goal, and it's working, and people love them. I mean, they have their limitations, but nonetheless, it's happening. And yes, it's a relatively small part of Alphabet, so you probably don't buy Alphabet for that. But if you like Alphabet anyway, this is another reason to like Alphabet. The way we, and I hate to use the word play because we're talking about clients' money. So the way we invest in autonomy as an opportunity is through sensors. And it's a bit like when I described how machines get more eyes. Those machines also get a lot more eyes or a lot more sensors to see the world around them, but also to be self-aware. And it sounds a bit theoretical, but if you think about, all the different ways that these machines help drive themselves, completely by themselves, or augmenting or correcting your efforts and mistakes as a driver, they need to know the angle at which every wheel is at, the speed with which that wheel is spinning, the speed with which different other spinning bits of the machinery that drives the drivetrain of a car are spinning, the angle of your steering wheel. The end game of how the vehicle is engineered is is a complete. It's called XBW, X by wire, which means everything by wire. Your steering wheel is no longer connected to your wheels, even in some high-end vehicles today. You think you're moving the wheel and the wheels are turning, but actually it's all sort of an illusion. It's all wire that connects one to another, and you get some kind of haptic feedback from that. So we're seeing that happening already. It'll be more of that. Industry is talking about something called corner modules, where every wheel will have an engine, electric motor, and the braking system and the turning system self-contained, and so your car can sort of go sideways or spin on one place, and it's actually pretty cool. You don't have to worry about parallel parking or 360 turns or whatever it's called, because it's the car will just sort of spin on a spot. That's great, but it needs a lot of those sensors that understand how this car behaves and where all the bits are. And we have a US listed company called Allegro Microsystems, which is a dominant global leader in all the sensors. They make all this work already, and they benefit from that. And for us, this is where in the ecosystem, where in the cluster will we get most bang for our buck if the world goes more autonomous. Allegro is a strong contender.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you. The next one is, which are the best ETFs to play the new sectors? But I guess your answer is going to be not ETFs. It's the Amati Global Innovation Fund. I might need to answer that one, but if you have any answer, I'm happy to hear.
We're not making any recommendations, of course, for our fund, but it's a I'm a little bit. We see a lot of ETFs. ETF trading has become very active, and if anything, we see this as a source of inefficiency, because people buy and sell things. So somebody put that ETF together, and sometimes they comp things together that sort of thematically belong, but we wouldn't buy those things in our portfolio, for example.
I found that as well. So when I was in my previous role, I ran a global equity fund, and it was quite thematic, and I would see these ETFs, and then I would have my kind of sleeve of, let's call it AI, and I would have maybe 10 to 12 names, but they would have 40 to 50, and a lot of it's just junk because it touches the space, and more often than not, the kind of more high conviction play would do better. So I think that's the thing to think about. If rather than worrying about how can I get invested in it, if you're not doing it all day long, hand it over to someone like Mikhail or someone like that, that's their job and they're professionals and they know what they're doing. Because otherwise you're going to be because you've several layers. One layer is being able to understand and read the ETF, and then the second layer as well, being able to read and understand the stocks within that ETF. So there's kind of several layers to that. So I would say try and avoid figuring it out yourself if you don't do it all day long. So the next question is, how early do you invest? Do you have market cap limits? And given some of these innovations maybe early, are the company financials, the quality of them considered?
Yeah, so we invest in real businesses, not science projects. So our companies tend to be profitable, cash generative, strong balance sheet, well funded. So this isn't absolutely not an early stage kind of speculative innovation investing strategy. We're very pragmatic and risk aware around that. The size range, our investable universe starts typically from a $500 million market cap, and that's relatively rare for us to go as low as this. We don't want this to be a giant fund, but we equally want to grow it, and we want to make sure that we have the liquidity to get in and out of stocks and not get stuck. So we're very much aware of that. So I guess that's my answer to the question.
Yeah. So the financials matter. That's
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you a sense, in our line of work, it's usually quite helpful to do a fund average of what do our companies on average do, and I'm just going to read this as of a month ago, but it's pretty representative. So if you look at a typical company in our portfolio, they grow their earnings 23% per year. This is the consensus forecast. That's not ours. We can be more ambitious, which is significantly faster than the market, almost about 1.5 to 2 times faster typically. They have a free cash flow yield of just under 4%, so they're cash generative, and their EBIT margin is about about 10% exactly. So they're not the most profitable companies in the world yet, because some of them are still on their journey to kind of their full potential. But still, that's a pretty healthy level of profitability. Just to give you a sense of what does real business, no science project means to us.
Okay, thank you. And the final question is, with most of your allocation to the US, do you think the US will be the innovation leader? And if not, where will be next, or where else should we be looking at or thinking about?
US is about 60% of the fund. Ironically, that probably means we're underweight US compared to the markets. But it is deep, wide, broad markets in all the areas we care about: tech, healthcare, industrials, aerospace, and defense. So it's been a great source of ideas for us. But we go wherever innovation takes us. We have a Norwegian stock in our portfolio. They just happen to be, that company happens to be best at that particular field, and is based in Norway. US will it be always innovation leader? I mean, up until recently, I'd say probably, because the commitment to innovation, the availability of both academic funding and venture capital funding, which is what feeds the funnel, if you like, before it comes to our attention. Nothing compared. I've been taking a few hits below the waterline lately, but not enough to call a regime change, if you like. The close contender is, of course, China. And this is where it gets a bit tricky for us, because we don't invest in China. And we don't invest in China for what we call ESGH reasons. We think countries that lack civic liberties and freedoms, societal freedoms, can go very bad. And your ability to benefit from their innovation will be very limited if they go bad. See, Sberbank, I grew up in St. Petersburg, as you mentioned. Sberbank, Russian leading bank, was a great bank, is a great bank. Yandex, the Google of Russia, has been a great search engine. You would have lost all your money in those stocks as a Western investor for obvious reasons. China is a long way away from that, but the direction of travel is concerning. So we're torn, because we see a lot of innovation, well publicized electric vehicles, increasingly semiconductors, lots of digital services, increasingly life sciences as well, are in China. And yet we don't participate for these reasons. It didn't stop us. We've done fine without participating in that so far. But we're very we're very interested in companies that are supplying picks and shovels to innovators. And if their picks and shovels are the best picks and best shovels for that particular innovation area, like, for example, life sciences tools or certain kinds of semiconductors, then the Chinese customers will still buy their wares. And then this way we benefit from innovation in China and that next chapter of kind of the contender for the global leadership and innovation boom, without taking the title risk, if you like, the political risk that comes with it.
No, that's great. Thank you. That's all the questions. So we'll end it now. I'm conscious we're 10 minutes over. So thank you all for your patience and hanging around. If you have any questions afterwards, please send them to me, Brian at breakingwaters.com, and I will get them to Mikhail. And watch out as well, if you haven't subscribed to breakingwaters.com, please do, and you'll get the get an email about the next session, which I'm in the process of lining up. And I'm pretty sure we'll have Mikhail back in a few months, because innovation is always changing. There's always something to talk about, and I thought this was a great session. So thank you, Mikhail.
Thanks very much. Thanks for organizing it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye all.
And